Yeah. Well, to me, the pioneer in past life regression is Dr. Brian Weiss, who wrote Many Lives and Many Masters. And he writes, he's a Yale graduate, did not believe in reincarnation, and through his experience with a patient of his by the name of Catherine, when typical psychotherapy wasn't working after, I think it might be a year and a half, he decided to hypnotize her. And during that hypnosis session, he simply said, go back to when this feeling first began. And she spontaneously regressed into another lifetime. At the time, he thought she was just making it all up. But as she began to have these experiences of going to other times, she began to heal from her fears of swimming or drowning and other fears that she had. And she began to finally heal, and it got his attention. But what really got his attention was when one of the masters came through and spoke to him about a child he had lost, how the baby died. It was very unusual. Nobody in Miami knew about it. He was working at Mount Sinai at the time. He was a very prominent physician. And he knew that there was no way this patient could have found any of this information out. They didn't even know he had lost a child, let alone how he had lost the child, how the child had passed. Also talked about his father's Jewish name and things that nobody could find. And so this began his path into having the courage. It took him 5 years to have the courage to write the book because, you know, this is still out there, and that was even back then.
Right. I mean, and he, you know, and a person in his type of position, credibility was everything.
Absolutely. As a doctor, you know, he could be under a lot of scrutiny, as all of the pioneers have been who begin to talk about this. So fascinating. And there are many other therapists who may have used hypnosis or even guided imagery and who discovered these other lifetimes, but there was no training back then. And so that is starting to come around now, where there's, Dr. Brian Weiss does do training, as do others. There's an organization, International Regression Organization, that trains people to do this type of work.
So there's a certification process to this?
Yes, there's not a licensure, but there is, yes, a type of, so you have to be certified to be a hypnotist, and then you can specialize in this. And there's a lot to that as well. So
and that kind of lends credibility to the whole process, I got to say, I would think anyway.
Yes, I mean, if you're going to go and work with someone to do this work, you need to work with someone who, first of all, you feel comfortable and safe with. That's the most important thing. And secondly, that this person is trained to do this type of work and not just does it periodically or sporadically.
And they actually do it as a real occupation.
Yes.
That's interesting. And I remember you were talking about Dr. Weiss, is it? And I remember in your discussion with Dr. Weiss, or about Dr. Weiss, you mentioned healing. So there is a healing that occurs. How does that occur? And is that kind of like instantly, or is that?
Yeah, this is what's fascinating. In fact, I'm writing a book now called Soul Explorers, Healing Through Past Life Regression, because I've had so many clients now that have healed, physical healing, as a result of doing this type of work. The short answer to your question is sometimes it happens immediately, sometimes it happens over days, sometimes it happens over weeks, sometimes even a little bit longer. But what's amazing is that it happens at all. And sometimes people come to me because I'm a certified hypnotist just to, I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't go back to sleep. What's going on? And in this one particular case with someone, I said, let's go back to when this began. Even I thought at the time it would be in this lifetime that something had happened that is triggering her to stay awake. But she, when I said, again, in terms similar to Dr. Wise's, go back to when this feeling first began, she spontaneously regressed
Right.
into a lifetime where she was a man. And she said, well, I'm a man. And her voice dropped just a little bit, and I'm about to be hung. And I did it all right. And as the story unfolded, he was being hung for horse thievery. I did not know at the time why we went back to that lifetime. I have to say I too was puzzled, but as I've been doing this since 1998, I now trust that a deeper wisdom within you knows exactly where to go for healing. And so what I learned afterwards, after the session was over and after she came back for her next session, was that her husband said, well, honey, you wake up in the middle of the night because your neck is hurting. She then shares with me that she had been in a car accident 8 years earlier, and for 7 years, 2 times a week, 7 years, 2 times a week, she'd been going to a chiropractor. After she had the experience of this regression,
Right.
being hung, she didn't die. When she came back to me a few weeks later, it was completely gone. That she had gone to her chiropractor again, as usual,
Right.
and he said, you're in complete alignment. What have you done? And she said, I am sorry, Patricia, but there was no way I was going to say what I had done, because she had no idea. You know, it was a very a creepy experience, but she continued to say, I am that man, I was that man, and continued to heal. So it's stories like that that are fascinating.
Right. And I gotta say, there's